Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to another edition of the Fantasy Maverick podcast, and we are going to go through all the Week 13 games. I'm going to let you know if it's going to be a fantasy graveyard, a fantasy blowout, or a fantasy gold mine. Stay tuned. Here we go.
Listen up. It's time for the Fantasy Maverick podcast, starring the guy who's going to help you win that fantasy championship, Jimmy Maverick.
Hello there, friends. It's Jimmy Maverick. Welcome to the Fantasy Maverick podcast, coming at you from Santa Fe, New Mexico. And I just wanted to say thank you for joining me out. We're heading straight towards the playoffs very quickly here. Only a couple of weeks to go. I hope your team is doing well. I really want to help you make those playoffs. That's the most important thing right now at this time of the season. And even though we're kind of in the doldrums, man, I got to say, has not been great for fantasy football scoring. In fact, in one of my leagues where we have we give a bonus every week to the highest scoring team of the week. The highest scoring team of last week only scored like 140 points. I mean, it was very, very low when you, all things considered. And of course, just a brutal week for injuries and stuff. I hope you're weathering that all right. Hey, before I begin, if you could, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment, share this with your friends, and of course, subscribe. All those things help me with the YouTube algorithm. I do very much appreciate it. And hey, I just want to, I just got to ring my bell there. For my Fantasy Football Players Championship, the high stakes leagues that I'm in, I did qualify one of my three teams for the playoffs. I'm very happy about that. This is a team that I picked ninth, and I started out with my picks. My first three picks were Tyreek Hill, Najee Harris, TJ Hawkinson. Pretty solid players this season. Very happy with that. Got some nice depth on it. I've got Gronkowski as well. You know, so obviously him being back is absolutely key to helping me win. And right now, looking at the playoffs, looking at the teams that made the playoffs, my team definitely looks the strongest to be able to get myself my fourth Fantasy Football Players Championship medal there, so we'll see what happens. But anyway, let's talk about Week 13. Now, obviously, we've only got like maybe your league only has 2 or 3 more games to go for the playoffs start. So making the playoffs is the most critical thing that you need to do right now. You got to focus on winning. And obviously, weathering those injuries, so critical. And it has been a tough year for injuries, I have to say. This week, again, not looking great for the matchups. I don't have a whole lot of fantasy gold mine games. I got 3. Only 3 games qualify as gold mines. All the rest are either graveyards or blowouts. So let's just get to it, man. Let's just start with the graveyards. Starting with let's start with the Giants at the Dolphins. This is the Sunday early game. Dolphins are currently favored by 5, and the over/under only 40.5 points. And this is not surprising. Both these teams, very hard to figure out fantasy-wise, and not a lot of fantasy-relevant players. On the Giants side, you got Barkley, who apparently is back to full strength, should get a full workload, but the Dolphins, top 5 against the run, so that could hinder some of his production. I think he's still an absolutely solid choice to place, but right now, man, if you drafted Saquon Barkley, chances are you're not competing for a playoff spot. That's all I have to say. I said at the beginning of the season that Barkley was the biggest risk-reward player of this season. And let me tell you, man, it was all risk. There was no reward there. So I'm sorry if you took a gamble on him. I had a chance to take him in the second round in a couple of my drafts, and I just didn't do it, and I'm pretty happy that I made that decision. So, but anyway, the receivers of the Giants get a much better matchup. In fact, the Dolphins are third best for wide receivers. So if you're desperate, I think both Golladay and Toney can be started as a flex. But the offense is just awful, and that's all there is to it. You can't really say anything else about that. Now on the Dolphins side, Gaskin has been pretty good so far. You can definitely start him. top 4 matchup. That's nice to see. And then also Waddle, who's been outstanding, one of the best rookie wide receivers of this season. And of course, the reason he's been so great is because there's no other competition for targets. And so, absolutely you can start those two. Gesicki has just been enormously inconsistent, just a very, very frustrating player to have on your team. But I think you can start him here if you need him as your tight end. So, but he is a risky start. Next graveyard game, Eagles at the Jets. Eagles currently favored by 6.5. The over-under is 45 points. That seems a little high to me, but, whatever. The Eagles have just been super disappointing, just like nothing's going on for them offensive-wise. Jalen Hurts has only gotten you one good game out of the past 6. That is not the kind of ratio you want if you're trying to get these last-second wins. It is a middle-of-the-road matchup, so it's nothing. There's nothing daunting there. His rushing yards obviously give him a safe floor, but I would be looking for maybe someone else with the critical wins on the line, and as much as he's been struggling and not passing the ball, his receiving yards have been abysmal. You've got Goddard, who has been super uneven in his usage. Look, last 4 games. 6 targets, 2 targets, 8 targets, 3 targets. Again, that is fantasy suicide, man. When you're talking about season-long fantasy, that is the worst kind of player to roster. I mean, they are the worst. It is a top 10 matchup for him, so it is a good matchup. So I think I'd be willing to gamble starting him this week, but just know that really Goddard's usage makes him a daily fantasy player, not a season-long fantasy. So that's what you need to know there. Devonta Smith's usage has been below my threshold. With receivers, I like to see them with at least 7 targets. 7 targets pretty much gets them a flex value, but he's been under that. He's been under 7 targets a week since week 7. So, the offense is just extremely frustrating. It's very hard to trust anybody on this offense, and so that's why I'm just inclined to not play someone like Devonta Smith. Backfield continues to be a mess, but I think you could flex Miles Sanders or Boston Scott. It is a very, very good matchup for the running backs, so I think they will be productive. So I think those are decent choices. And then on the Jets. Are you really going to consider starting Tevin Coleman? I mean, he gets a top 5 matchup. He had 18 touches and targets last week. But, for me, in my book, that's like, okay, you can start him. I think he's good to start. But you just don't know. The Jets' offense is just so abysmal. I'd sit the receivers. They're facing a defense ranked top 3. Against that position, so I wouldn't even bother with that. Again, it's just a mess. That's why it's in the graveyard. This whole game is in the graveyard. Next game, we got the Cardinals at the Bears. And I put it here because for the Cardinals, we still don't know the status of Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins. The coach is still saying he hopes that Kyler Murray will play. It's I'm recording this on Wednesday morning, but that's as of Tuesday. I'm like, that doesn't sound very likely. We'll have to see what happens. Murray would be facing a top 10 defense if he starts. So that is another mark against potentially starting him. I think if he does get in like a full practice this week, I would probably start him. But if that dude's a game time decision, even though it's the Sunday early game, game time decision, give yourself till Sunday morning, check his status. Maybe start him then if he's going to go. But otherwise, I think I would just sit him. I mean, seriously, you're trying to get wins here. You need points. You can't risk the fact of him coming out there and being hobbled or worse, getting knocked out with an injury because he's already injured. Connor remains a must start, and Christian Kirk is a start as long as Hopkins is out. And again, Hopkins not looking good that he's going to play this week. So, again, just very disappointing for Hopkins. I I had really high hopes for him. But on the flip side, Christian Kirk, it is a contract year. I knew he was going to have a good, productive year, and he has. He's done very well. And so, again, that's why he is a start. And it's a great matchup for the receivers as well. Ertz is also a start if Hopkins sits because of his volume, but it is a tough matchup for the tight ends. On the Bears side, boy, you've got Montgomery and you got Mooney. Those are really the only two players you can consider starting on this team. And that's it. That's all you need to say, man. Bears very limited offensive prowess. The next graveyard game, this is going to shock you. I was kind of shocked putting it here. I don't think I would have ever done this, but looking at how both these teams offensively are playing, I think it's a fair placement. But the Broncos at the Chiefs, the Sunday night game, I have it as a graveyard game. Now the Chiefs are favored by 9.5. The over-under is 47 points. And, the Chiefs could come out and be great. But the thing is, they've been bad as much as they've been great in games this season. And really Mahomes just very much struggling. So anyway, so let's talk about the Broncos. So I don't think you should start the Denver receivers right now. They're facing a top 10 pass defense, and the volume has been atrocious. Last week, Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton each got 3 targets. I mean, you can't trust that. You cannot put players like that into your lineup when we're this close to the playoffs. You got to find better options. Noah Fant gets a top 10 matchup, so I'm going to take a chance on him. And in fact, in one of my leagues, I was able to pick up Noah Fant off the waivers. Somebody dropped him, and I was able to get him. And it's a team that I had Darren Waller as my tight end. Waller's out this week, so I'm putting him in. I'm confident. I think he's going to be fine. I think he's going to be good this week. And, of course, you got Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams splitting time in that backfield, but I think both of them are getting enough volume that they are absolutely flex-worthy. You can absolutely put them in your flex, no problem. I think, and they should be productive there. Don't start Bridgewater. I don't think I need to tell you that, but don't. For the Chiefs, Denver is top 10 against quarterbacks, tight ends, and running backs. So, the Denver defense has been playing extremely well. They held the Chargers to, 13 points last week or 14 points? And the Chargers offense, I think, is better than the Chiefs offense this year. But anyway, you don't start, you're not going to sit Mahomes, you're not going to sit Kelsey, you're not going to sit Hill, and you're not going to sit Clyde Edwards-Helaire. You're going to play them all, but just know that this offense has struggled mightily this season, and so you just need to temper your expectations. Obviously, I got that playoff game this week with Tyreek Hill. I got no problem starting Tyreek Hill. Plus, it's a PPR league, so that also helps. But, like I said, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, a defensive struggle. The final defensive struggle game, Fantasy Graveyard, Patriots at Bills on Monday Night Football. So this is kind of bad for fantasy, man. If you have a bad Sunday and you're hoping for the Sunday night and the Monday night game to bail you out, I think you're going to be in trouble. So the Patriots and the Bills, again, massive defensive struggle here. 2 really, really good defenses, and they are both these teams are playing for a lot. But as far as the Patriots goes, Buffalo defense is top 6 against all positions: running back, quarterback, wide receiver, tight end. So again, on the Patriots side, who are you really comfortable starting? And I got to say, this week, I am not comfortable starting anybody on the Patriots offense. They're just, even though some of them had a great game, last week, Jacoby Myers had a great game. Hunter Henry's always in the mix for a touchdown. But again, I think it's just riskier than normal. I think this is, like I said, it's going to be a very low-scoring game. Because the Bills defense, the Patriots defense is top 5 against quarterbacks, wide receivers, and tight ends. The only position they're not top 5 against is running backs, and they're middle of the road. They're like about 14th or 15th in the league. But again, do you trust the Bills' backfield? I don't trust the Bills' backfield. It's such a mess. There's too many bodies back there, and you don't know who's going to get the points. The only players on the Bills that I would be inclined to start are Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Those are the only ones I can trust. So on this game, again, that's it. Those are the only players I'd be comfortable starting for Week 13. So that's it for the graveyards. Now we're going to move on to the blowouts. Again, a ton of blowouts. I got 6 games qualifying for blowout status. The first one, Cowboys at the Saints, the Thursday night game. So this is the one for tomorrow night. Cowboys are favored by 4.5. Over-under is 47.5. I got to say, man, I would take the over. I would take the Cowboys with only a 4.5 point favorites. They're going to get CeeDee Lamb is back. He's going to play. Amari Cooper is probably not. But the Saints have given up the 5th most points to wide receivers. So obviously Lamb is an auto start anyway. But with Cooper out, Gallup, absolutely a start. He's going to be fantastic. Saints are tops against running backs. And so that makes me concerned for Zeke Elliott. Obviously, Zeke's been dealing with that leg injury, and, I thought he was maybe going to sit this week. No, the dude went out on Tuesday, put in a full practice. He's not even on the injury report anymore. But I got to say, I am still very nervous about Zeke. And obviously, if you have Zeke, you're going to have to start him. But I'd be more inclined to play Pollard. I think Pollard's going to have a better game. And we've seen how explosive Pollard is. And I think Elliott knows that. I think that's why Elliott's playing, is because he knows how good Pollard is. He doesn't want to get pushed out. But anyway, you're taking a risk with Elliott here. And both Elliott and Pollard, I don't like the idea of starting them, but I do understand if you want to. Let's see here. Dalton Schultz faces a top 10 defense against tight ends, but his volume has been excellent, so I'd start him also with Cooper out. That means volume will be available for Schultz, so I think he's good to go. On the Saints side, boy, we don't know if Kamara's going to play. It looks like Ingram is good to go. But again, I consider Ingram very, very risky. Kamara, we're going to have to see how he does this week. He hasn't been playing yet. As of Tuesday, has not been playing yet. So again, he could be a game time decision, or they could just end up sitting him again, which kind of sucks because I do have him in one of my leagues, and this is a team that needs to get some wins right now. I'm just outside the playoff. I'm like 7th, and the top 6 teams go to the playoffs. So I need him in there. I need him in there to get me those points. But if he's not healthy, it's not going to happen. But really, you can't start anyone else on the Saints. I mean, the offense is just abysmal, just so bad. And it's too bad because the defense is pretty good and has been pretty good this year. But how long can they continue to hold up when the offense gives them no help the whole game? Next blowout game, we got the Colts at the Texans, Sunday early game. Colts are favored by 8. Over-under is 45.5. Colts, Houston is a great team to start against. Their defense ranks top 10 for quarterbacks and running backs. Top 13 for wide receivers. That's pretty good, too. JT, obviously an automatic start, but I think he's going to have a great game. It's going to be a really good game for him. Pittman got 10 targets last week. Great to start him. Got no problem starting him. And I think Carson Wentz is a fantastic streaming option this week. If you're talking about trying to decide between, a hobbled Kyler Murray or Carson Wentz, just based on the matchups and that the fact that they're healthy, and Wentz has been very productive. He's been a pretty good quarterback this year. I don't know exactly where he's ranking right now for points, but he's good to get you 20, and that's kind of what you want right now. And I'd consider that a safer play than someone like Kyler Murray hobbled with injury. As far as the Texans, Cooks is the only player that you can play on this offense, and that's it. Next blowout game, Vikings at the Lions, another Sunday early game. Vikings favored by 7. The over-under is 46.5 points. Did you know that Detroit is top 10 against receivers? That's kind of shocking for a team that has yet to notch a win. But you're not going to sit Justin Jefferson. You're not going to sit Adam Thielen. Go ahead and start them. They're good to go. Alexander Madison, absolutely smash start. Top 5 matchup. This is critical. I have Madison in several of my leagues. Super happy to have him available. He's going to have a big week. I'm very excited about that. Conklin moves back to my sit column. He's only gotten 3 targets in each of the past 2 weeks. It's just not enough to start. Put him back on your bench. And I think Cousins, another great streaming option if you need a quarterback. I think both. I think that both Cousins and Wentz are going to be top 10 quarterbacks this week. So there you go. On the Lions, the biggest problem is Hawkinson gets a bad matchup. Vikings ranked 3rd best against the tight end. So that's kind of a problem for my playoff team, as I have Hawkinson. I am not going to sit Hawkinson, though. You got to play him. This league, by the way, is a tight end premium league, 1.5 points per reception. So that kind of insulates even low volume players from just totally destroying your team. Plus, I got Gronk in one of my flex spots too. So I'm running with Gronk Hawkinson this week. So I'm pretty comfortable with that. And then as far as Swift is out, so Jamal Williams, I think he looks good to start. He's going to get enough volume to be productive, so I think he's a start. But that's it. That's it on this team. Next blowout game, Buccaneers at the Falcons. Buccaneers currently favored by 11. 50 points is the over-under. Very excited about this game for the Buccaneers. You can start everyone for the Bucs, right? You got Brady, Fournette, Evans, Godwin, Gronk, all getting top 10 matchups. It's going to be good for the offense. Again, I would prefer it to be like last week where all the volume was going to Gronk and Evans and Godwin weren't getting much at all, because the guy I'm playing this week in that playoff game, he's got Brady, Evans, and Godwin. And I have Gronk, and I also have Suckup. So I'm semi-insulated against that Brady upside, but that kind of makes me feel a little better about having to face that in a playoff situation. For the Falcons, the only players you can trust are Cordarrelle Patterson and Kyle Pitts. Obviously, the Buccaneers' run defense, one of the best in the league. But with Cordarrelle, he also has his passing usage, so I think he's going to be productive regardless. Again, negative game script for the Falcons, so it's going to be a lot of passing. Kyle Pitts is good. And I think Russell Gage works as a desperation flex if you need him. But just understand he's another one of those players with completely uneven usage on a week-to-week basis, and that just makes him impossible to trust. It's just, he's the worst kind of players for fantasy football, but I could understand if you'd want to start him this week. Next blowout game, Jaguars at the Rams, Sunday afternoon. Rams are favored by 12.5, over and under 48.5. For the Jaguars, the only player I would trust to start is James Robinson. That is really it, man. I hate this offense. I hate the passing volume. I'm actually going to have to start Marvin Jones in one of my leagues. Actually, in that playoff game, I slotted Marvin Jones in, because I think, if he gets me 5 catches for 50 yards, that's 10 fantasy points. That's good enough. That's good enough for a flex spot. I'm okay with that. But as far as Laviska Shenault or anyone else on this offense, you're just really rolling the dice. I can understand if you want to start him, but if you need to start him, but if you have a better alternative, absolutely put him on your bench and just don't even deal with this offense. They just suck so bad. Now, for the Rams, we got Henderson is questionable. Which is a little surprising. Obviously, we're going to have to wait to see how that turns out. Obviously, if Henderson gets in a full practice and is good to go, you're going to start him, no problem. If he sits, though, Sony Michel, absolutely a start. So I think that'd be great for your fantasy team if you got Michel on your bench. Let's see here. The receivers get a top 12 matchup. So Kupp, OBJ, and Van Jefferson, I think, are all starts. OBJ, again, another player you want to check his injury status. He has a questionable designation on him right now as well. Stafford has been struggling, obviously dealing with some injuries, which kind of sucks. I'm going to continue to start him, even though it's a tough matchup. Let's see here. The Jags are top 8 against quarterbacks. But again, if you've got Wentz or you got Cousins, I would probably play them ahead of Stafford, just because Stafford has been so disappointing the past few weeks. So there you are. The final blowout game, Niners at the Seahawks. Niners favored by 3. The over-under is 45.5. That, again, seems really low, right? I would totally take the Niners with 3, But anyway, that just seems out of whack to some of these other games. But Kittle's volume has sucked the past 2 weeks. He's only gotten 6 targets total, but he gets a top 10 matchup, so I'm going to continue to trust to start him. I'm going to start him again. Eli Mitchell, incredible last week, huge volume. The Seahawks ranked second best for opposing running backs. So yes, absolutely start him. I don't think you can start Wilson though. His volume was terrible last week. We got to wait to see what happens with that whole situation. Just keep him on your bench for now. Debo is doubtful. So Ayuk, absolutely a must start here as well. You should be good there. Now on the Seahawks, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to tell you about the Seahawks offense, other than it's just been so awful, really just shockingly awful. DK Metcalf with 1 catch last week. That is, I don't even know how that's possible. There's all rumors that the coach is going to get fired at the end of this season. Russell Wilson might not be on this team next year either. It's just very much a situation that's falling apart. It's terrible. It's awful to see. I hate to see it because I do like these players. But can you really trust him? Can you trust Russell Wilson? I would not start Russell Wilson this week. It's a tough matchup, and I just keep him on my bench. Metcalf and Lockett, can you really trust to start him? Lockett was okay last week. He did all right if you started him, but again, the volume's so low, the production is minimal. I'd be inclined to keep all these guys on your bench if you can, if you don't have a better option. They're just so risky right now. So that's where I'm at with that. So let's go to the final thing, gold mines. Which are my favorite kind of games. The ones where a lot of points are going to get scored, a lot of fantasy points are going to get scored. It's going to be fun to watch. Chargers at the Bengals. It's a Sunday early game. Bengals are currently favored by 3. The over-under is 50.5 points. And my one concern about this game is the whole thing about West Coast teams traveling to the Eastern time zone to play in the early game. It just messes with their, it messes with their rhythm. And it makes them off. The Chargers already had to do that with Washington earlier this year. And although they did okay, I think they won that game. It wasn't great for fantasy. There wasn't any great players. But regardless, the Bengals defense, it's a top 10 matchup for Eckler. So obviously you start Eckler no matter what. Much tougher for the quarterbacks. Herbert faces a top 7 defense. So again, Herbert is a player that I would be inclined to sit if I have one of those better options to back him up. So there you go. Allen and Williams are both fine to start this week. Cook remains below my threshold for volume to start, so I would put him on your bench. For the Bengals, this is going to be a game that features the running game. Mixon gets a top 6 matchup. So again, it's going to be a game that's going to feature the running game. So I'm kind of excited to see that. That should be great. Burrow, not startable right now, but Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, both good to play. But Tyler Boyd needs to be sat because his usage is awful. Last 4 weeks, 8 targets, 2 targets, 8 targets, 2 targets. Don't play that game. Don't start Tyler Boyd. Don't do it. It's a trap. And then Uzomah continues to only get 3 targets a game, but it's a top 3 matchup. So this is a die roll play. You're playing for the touchdown. It happens. Last week, Dawson Knox got 2 touchdowns on 3 targets. Uzomah's done that this year where he got two touchdowns on 3 targets. It can happen. It's in the realm of possibilities. So if you're desperate for a tight end, yeah, go ahead and start him. It's a good, it's a good matchup. He'll maybe get a touchdown, but that's basically all you're hoping for with him. It's touchdown or bust with Uzomah. The next gold mine game, we got Washington at the Raiders. Raiders currently favored by 2.5, over under 49.5. This is a Sunday afternoon game. Washington gets great matchups for Antonio Gibson, second best matchup for running backs. Logan Thomas, third best matchup for tight ends, so both are starts. McLaurin does get a pretty tough matchup, seventh toughest, but his volume is good for a flex, so you can totally play him as a flex. For the Raiders, Washington has given up the most fantasy points to quarterbacks. So here's another streaming option, Derek Carr. I would play Derek Carr over Justin Herbert this week. Just the same with Cousins and Wentz, right? So anyway, that's where I'm at with these players, but I think it's going to be a great game for Derek Carr. No bad matchups against this defense. Josh Jacobs and Hunter Renfrow both starts here. And with Darren Waller doubtful, Foster Moreau is a start as well. So that's another tight end that you can look to if your tight end is injured or one of these ones that I say you should probably sit. I would much rather play Foster Moreau than Uzomah, just as an example. All right, so final game, Sunday afternoon game, goldmine game, Ravens at the Steelers. Ravens are currently favored by 4.5. The over-under is 44 points, which seems a little low, but I can understand why. Steelers have been really disappointing offensively. For the Ravens, their toughest matchup is for Mark Andrews. He faces a top 10 matchup, but he's been getting fantastic volume, like 10 targets a week. 3 out of the past 4 weeks, 10 targets. That's outstanding for a tight end. So you absolutely play him. Marquise Brown gets a top 10 matchup, so definitely start him. I don't trust the volume for Rashad Bateman. He has been under that 7 target per week. In fact, I think he's only getting like 4 or 5 targets a week. Just not enough to trust for season-long fantasy. So I would sit him. And then you've got Devonta, Freeman, and Lamar Jackson should both have a good game. Lamar Jackson definitely is going to bounce back from that 4-interception game last week. I don't know what the hell happened there, but I need him to come through. That's my playoff. My playoff team has Lamar Jackson. I need him to have a good game. I think he can have a good game here. For the Steelers, obviously Big Ben's regression. You know, he can't do it anymore, but they don't really have any better options. So that is concerning. Obviously, you can play Najee Harris. You can play Deontay Johnson. Just know Najee Harris is facing a top 10 rush defense. But hopefully he gets more involved with the passing game. Didn't get a lot of passes last week, but hopefully they get him the ball more. So that'll be good. Obviously, Najee's in my playoff game, so I need him to play good. I need him to do better than he did last week. That's for sure. When he got he got like 7 points or something. It was terrible. Let's hear Chase Claypool, Pat Freiermuth, all startable. Freiermuth gets a top 5 matchup as well. So he should be good. So anyway, again, we're in the doldrums. This is the doldrums of the season. We're going to start to see some gonzo players happening though soon. That usually happens late in the season here, and we're right at the point where we're going to start to see it. And it can be anybody, but they just go off and have a huge week. Who was it last week that had? Oh yeah, Fournette. Yeah, Fournette, man. Huge game last week, right? Those gonzo games, they start to happen at this time, especially for those teams that are already eliminated and are just playing for the hell of it and just trying to spoil the other teams in their playoff quest. So it gets fun and entertaining at this point when that stuff starts to happen. So anyway, good luck in week 13. And if you haven't done so already, check the waiver wire. I apologize not getting a waiver wire show out again this week, but it's just end of the month, holiday weekend. It just didn't happen. So I apologize. But, we're cruising to the playoffs here. Hope things are going well for your team. And anyway, please like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Good luck in week 13, and we will talk again soon. Have a good one, everybody.